Here we go again. You know, it's funny. All we ever hear about from the wokers is talk about equality, diversity, equal opportunity. They're always complaining that they're being held back by the white man or the government or the system. Systemic oppression, systemic racism. It's your fault that I am not succeeding. We have yet another example of how this equality that the wokers speak of, this equality, is not a two-way street, doesn't work both ways. Equality only comes into play when it benefits the woke agenda. Cedric Maxwell is a radio broadcaster in Boston. And for those in my audience under the age of 50, which is about 95% of you, Cedric Maxwell was a part of those legendary Celtics teams in the 1980s. His number's retired, jerseys hanging in the rafters at TD Garden in Boston. I saw an interesting headline this morning that perfectly sums up what we're going to talk about. The headline over at the Sports Daily read, "The Morning Dump. Cedric Maxwell makes the case for a Celtics coach of color." I always find it interesting when wokers use the term people of color, because the last I checked, every human walking the planet was a color of some sort, whether it be white, black, brown, whatever. We're all people of color, but I digress. I don't know much about Cedric Maxwell. Before today, I didn't even know he had his own radio show. In KC's world, Cedric Maxwell didn't exist until now. With Brad Stevens being promoted to the front office in Boston, the Celtics are in need of a new head coach. According to Cedric Maxwell, the Celtics must hire a person of color. No exceptions. Here's what he said, quote, "I think hiring a person of color as coach is important because if you look at the Celtics front office, if you look at most of those people who are there, who have been in the front office, ownership, everything else, those people aren't of color," end quote. This is a great example of why the woke agenda is based on a lie. I thought wokers were all about equality. Everyone having equal opportunity, right? Isn't that the entire premise of what the wokers like to call social justice? Social justice, otherwise known as socialism. It really is all about equality, really is. Everyone is equally miserable. We all make the same amount of money, which is very little, while the elites take the rest of the money for themselves, which is the bulk of it. But I have a question. If equality is the true goal of the woke community, like they say, then someone please tell me, how does eliminating white people from the Celtics head coaching position, how is that equality? Doesn't seem equal to me. If Cedric Maxwell has it his way, that sounds like the exact opposite of equality. You know what? This is what we're going to do. I'm going to paint a picture for you of what the NBA would look like under a true equal system. Let's pretend for a second that the NBA is truly all about equality. They like to say they're about equality now, but the NBA is still a capitalistic league, at least on the basketball court. The best players in the world are paid millions of dollars to play basketball. That's how it works. That's why guys like you and I aren't out there. We aren't that good. Under a social justice system, an equality system, that would not be the case. Right now, the NBA is made up of 74% African American, 17% white, 2% Hispanic, and 6% other. For this purpose, let's just assume the other category is Asian. Now, those demographics, that doesn't seem like equality to me. The NBA clearly favors African Americans over every other race. Well, that's not fair. That's not social justice. We have to make this right. Everyone should have the opportunity to play in the NBA. So here's what we're going to do to make everything equal. 25% of the African American players, gone, out of a job. Goodbye. All races will be represented in the new NBA. All races will have an equal 25% share of the league. After all, the NBA is all about diversity, right? Let's make the NBA truly diverse. You know what that means? When you lose 25% of the African American players, some of the league's biggest stars, they're going to be gone. Bye-bye Dame Lillard. Bye Zion Williamson, Lonzo Ball, Trae Young. Just take your pick. Take your pick. Some of them have to go because we want to be diverse. In their place will be white guys who weren't good enough to get drafted to begin with. Now you tell me, how exciting would that be to watch? I wouldn't watch it. I don't watch the NBA to see diversity. I watch the NBA to see the best basketball players. I don't care if they're black, white, Hispanic, Asian. It makes no difference to me. I just want to see the best of the best. This is why equality doesn't work. Social justice is great for people with no drive, no ambition. They're just gifted opportunities based on their race. But for the rest of us that do have drive and ambition, social justice squashes it. What would be the point of working hard when the system only gives opportunities based on race? All innovation gone. Why would you invent something like the smartphone when the government is just going to come in and take it from you and give the money to somebody else? The answer is you wouldn't. Cedric Maxwell is way off base with his take here on the Celtics coaching position. Instead of the Celtics hiring based off of race, what the hell happened to hiring the best candidate for the job? Doesn't that make more sense? Who cares if he's black, white? Doesn't matter. Hire the best fit for your organization. Let me give you a good example of what I'm talking about. Mark Jackson coached the Golden State Warriors for 3 years, 2011 to 2014. And he did a pretty good job. Made the playoffs 2 out of 3 years, but the Warriors under Mark Jackson, they were good, but they weren't great. The front office knew they could be better, and they felt Mark Jackson wasn't the right coach for the team. So they agreed to part ways. What if the Golden State Warriors, what if they had decided to use Cedric Maxwell's strategy for hiring, which would eliminate all white people from the position? Instead of finding the best head coach for their team, they're finding the best head coach to appease the wokers, or a coach the players are comfortable with, a coach they can relate to use Cedric Maxwell's own words. If that were the case, the Golden State Warriors never would have hired Steve Kerr, who won 3 championships in his first 4 years. Steve Kerr is white the last time I checked. Pretty sure he's white. And I'm pretty sure his players find him relatable. I'm also pretty sure that the majority of the roster in Golden State is made up of African Americans. Now, how could that be? How could the players even possibly relate to Steve Kerr, a white guy? Black people and white people, they can't relate to each other, according to the wokers. Being relatable has nothing to do with race. It has everything to do with the personality and the character of the person. The Chicago Bulls in the 1990s, they thought Phil Jackson was relatable. Hell, they liked Phil Jackson so much that they refused to play for another head coach. That's why the dynasty ended in 1998, because Jerry Krause was moving on from Phil Jackson after that season. Cedric Maxwell says that the players in Boston would be better off with a black coach because guys like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, they're involved in Black Lives Matter protest. What the hell does Black Lives Matter have to do with basketball? That's part of the damn problem with the NBA right now. That's a big reason why the NBA's lost 45% of their audience since 2012 and why ratings for the playoffs this year are down 7 to 11%. I don't know about you guys, but I am tired of these wokers making everything about race. Race should not even be a factor with the Celtics hiring a new head coach. The only consideration should be who is the best fit to lead this team. That's it. The Celtics didn't hire Doc Rivers back in 2004 because he was black. They hired him because he was the best fit for that roster. And it worked. They won a championship. I will say this, though. I do agree with Cedric Maxwell about one thing. He does make one good point. He said the Celtics' next head coach needs to be aggressive with young stars like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Cedric Maxwell basically called them soft without saying that they're soft. And he's absolutely right. But that's a problem across the entire NBA right now. He referenced how Kyrie Irving came in with the Nets and scraped his foot on the Celtics mascot. Then after the game, all the Celtics players were hugging Kyrie like they were long lost lovers. That kind of thing never would have happened in the NBA 20 years ago. Anyway, what do you guys think of Cedric Maxwell's comments that the Celtics must hire a person of color to be their next head coach? Do you agree with him? Is that true equality? Or do you think the Celtics should hire the best coach for the team? Sound off in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys later.